My name's Rob Harvey. I'm from Leeds, England, and I'm a singer, musician and songwriter.
My name's Ryder-Jones, and I'm a writer and producer of music.
I had a pretty normal childhood, working class background. The first time I experienced anxiety, I would have been between 8 and 10. I remember specifically struggling to sleep and this feeling. I'd get this feeling, that's the only way I could describe it back then. And my parents would often find me and I sat at the top of the stairs, confused at what it was. And it wasn't till late that I realised what I was suffering was anxiety. As a teenager, I found salvation in music, if you like. I got into kind of a group of guys who were into music and smoking weed, just kind of normal teenage stuff, really. Smoking weed was fun at the time, but that became quickly problematic for me. Started becoming more anxious. Occasionally I'd faint.
I've been quite an anxious person for as long as I can remember. We lost my big brother Daniel when I was young, and it really affected the family. I watched my mother go through a depression. She was on Prozac, and at home we used to call them her mad pills. I had nervous tics, night terrors, and I was petrified of the older lads at school, especially when they would start going out drinking. As I got older, I started to notice that most people seemed fine doing things that would terrify me. Something as simple as staying over the night at someone's house.
So the band I was in was a band called The Music, and we signed when we were 18. And I remember specifically signing the deal, and it was kind of champagne. There was still mothers and fathers hanging around, so it wasn't too crazy. The idea of touring the world, supporting your heroes. We supported bands like New Order, The Charlatans, Oasis, Coldplay. This was like an amazing thing for us.
I discovered music after Daniel died, and pretty soon after that, we formed the Coral. I was 16 when we got signed. I was only a boy and I hadn't been through puberty. I don't think I was ready for what being in a successful band meant. Our first manager was called Alan Wills, and he was an amazing man. But he stopped managing us after the first record. Our new manager wasn't particularly interested in people or music or anything really, apart from making money. So now we're alone on a major label, and when I became ill, I felt the label and management were negligent and should be fucking ashamed of themselves, if I'm honest. Soon we were travelling around America and Japan, which should have been amazing, but I started to have these gut-wrenching feelings of dread. I was smoking a lot of weed, which certainly made things worse. I loved the music, but I started to dread going on tour. See, the Coral were 5 really young men trying to work out who we were in this crazy environment. It was a microcosm of nutters.
It was only probably after a year or two of touring that the signs of anxiety and, I guess, confusion started to show. Every night you'd be like hitting the drink. Occasionally there'd be drugs and girls, and the attention from being on stage is, at first it's amazing and you feel powerful, but it gives you this false sense of self to a degree, that something didn't feel right. Where in social situations, where everybody else seemed really comfortable, and I could never get to that point, and the only way I could get to that point was like 2 drinks in. I'd only feel like everybody else at 2 drinks in, and that's a slippery slope, because 2 drinks soon leads to 4, and yeah. And I was like around 5 drinks, I was like life and soul of the party, and then 8, 10, I was always that guy who'd be like sat on his kitchen floor crying. I was waking up feeling bad every day, and the only remedy for it was to keep drinking. So that was becoming a problem, and I couldn't hide from it anymore.
What became known as my breakdown happened in South Wales, where we were recording, coincidentally near to where my brother died. We've jumped in this lake, and I went under and couldn't breathe. I got out, but the next day I had this terrifying panic attack that lasted 8 hours. I thought I was having an asthma attack, so I've started chugging on one of my bandmates' inhalers, which is the worst thing you can do, as it just pumps the body with adrenaline. It's hard to describe, but it felt like a light went out that night, and to be honest, it feels like it's never come back on. everything unravelled after that. I was stuck on Prozac and I couldn't really do anything on my own. I spent best part of a year sharing a bed with my mother, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to leave the house again.
So I spoke to my management and they suggested that I go speak to someone about what I'm thinking. So I took a train to London and I went into a place called the Priory. And then as you arrive, you see this big white grand building, and it's kind of like, how did I get here as you're walking through the door? I think some of the most amazing things about being in the Priory was sharing your experiences with people openly, talking about what I was going through. That I was like, this is good because I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only person feeling these things. But to recover, you have to understand that at some point you're a little bit broken.
I think music is the positive force in the world. It can genuinely heal, and it has helped me in many ways. Even just a few years ago, I couldn't get the train one stop from mine to my mum's on my own. And now I sing on stage and tour using my own name.
So after 12 years of being in the music, I found that it was time for me to try something else. And songwriting obviously felt like a natural progression from this. And I was unsure about whether I could succeed in an area, but I wanted to test myself. It's interesting that the thing that almost broke me was the only thing that could fix me in a way. If I could give the 18-year-old version of me any advice, it would be to speak sooner, to share what I'm going through sooner.
It can be done. I'm so grateful to everyone who's helped me get to this place. I think the first step to dealing with mental illness is understanding and accepting. Don't think of it as a curse. Don't buy into this romantic, tortured artist bullshit. Find the strength to reach out for help, because that's the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do.